Hey, greetings everyone. Welcome to Queens United Holistic Wellness Week. My name is Sabrina. I just want to give everybody a recap of yesterday's webinar. Yesterday's webinar was all about your body is a temple, and we had an awesome, amazing live cooking demo that was awesome as well. We learned so much. I didn't get a chance to mention the two winners for the webinar and also for the live demonstration. So for the Your Body is Your Temple webinar, the winners were Chanel and Kendra. Congratulations. And also too, for the live Go Vegan Philly live cooking demonstration, Kiki and Michelle, congratulations. You two also won a prize giveaway. So I will be contacting you via email. So today we have maternal wellness examine tonight. So we have some awesome, amazing panelists that are ready to do something different. It's a fireside chat. Fireside chat is where the infertility, the doula, and infant loss fireside chat will have conversations about the different things that goes on in each subject. But first, my first guest that I would like to introduce you to, her name is Salima McNeil, and she is from the Schoenberg Family Center and also the founder of Maternal Wellness Village. Salima?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Sabrina, for having me. I'm so excited for the updates that you just gave about Wellness Week.
Oh, thank you. So it's such a pleasure to have you on tonight. So I want to bring you on first, so that way people can get to know about the Maternal Wellness Village. So what's happening? What's new? What's going on with Maternal Wellness Village?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have some pretty amazing stuff coming up. Looking to launch our first pilot program where we incorporate the triadic approach with the doula support with our childbirth education series, being able to offer 12 free therapy sessions and also lactation support. We find that a lot of women, especially Black women who want these services, often have to go to multiple places and do a lot of research to find them. So we've all come together to create the village. So it's a one-stop shop. One of the most unique things about the Maternal Wellness Village is that it is for us, by us. It is a collective of Black birth workers who work here in the city of Philadelphia and our surrounding counties to bring forth these services in a way that it is culturally sensitive and competent and just aware of what the experiences of our people are on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. That's amazing. So how can participants, how can they, register for the Village Connect?
Yes, Village Connect program. So you can go on Instagram on the Maternal Wellness Village Instagram page. There's a link in our bio where you can fill out the survey to check your eligibility. We are looking for birthing people in the third trimester who are birthing in Philadelphia County, who identify as Black or African American. There is no income requirement. That has been the most important part for me because often the middle class gets forgotten and the problem is racism and not race. And so understanding that Black maternal mortality, those rates are indicative of a system that isn't geared to treat us well. So no matter if you make $5,000 a year, $50,000 or $150,000 a year, you qualify for this program because we want to be able to provide the support no matter what your circumstances are in Philadelphia. So you can go to the Maternal Wellness Village page to click that link. You can also go to the Ocean Family Center website, and there's a tab under the Maternal Wellness Village for our events, and also have access there as well.
Awesome, amazing. That I love it. So do you have a video that you wanted to share with us?
I do, but I don't have sharing abilities. So if Egypt will be so kind to give me the ability to share, I can show you our promo video.
Let me see. Yep, there you go.
All right, let's see if I can do this right. Hold on, let me cue up what it is. There we go. Are y'all just ready for this amazingness? We worked together to put this video out as a promo for the Village Connect. We have so much fun when we're shooting. So the authenticity that you see when we're all like together, getting these things together, are pretty indicative of how we like to be when we're able to come together, despite like COVID. And listen, we had temperature checks at the door to make sure we were all safe doing this, but definitely for the benefit of the people, and hopefully you'll be able to share as well. So here goes nothing.
My name is Takara Gainey, and I am a full spectrum doula. I am pleased to announce the Maternal Wellness Village, Village Connect. This pilot program addresses the staggering Black maternal health outcomes for Black birthing people in Philadelphia at all levels. Birth is not just about the birth of a baby. It's about treating the entire person as well as the entire family system. Participants in our program will receive wraparound services from the village's doulas, psychotherapists, lactation consultants, and public health nurses who look like them and come from the same cultural and racial background and experiences. Through the Village Connect, we are addressing the systems of oppression that are leading to these poor health outcomes. We are not just birthing babies. We are building the future. We are building our village. We are building a culture in our community.
Hi, my name is Javina Coleman, also known as the lactation therapist. I'm a licensed social worker and board certified lactation consultant. How you feed your baby for many is a big decision. Breastfeeding and chest feeding are the most optimal ways to nourish your baby. In the Village Connect, you will receive lactation, education, and support during the prenatal and postpartum period. We are dedicated to uplifting and supporting your feeding choices, providing you with the tools to define your own success and providing one-on-one lactation support. We are so excited to join you and your village on your lactation journey.
Hi, my name is Salima McNeil. I'm a reproductive psychotherapist and a founder and CEO of Oshun Family Center. With the Village Connect program, we are offering 12 free therapy sessions to help families transition as they deal with postpartum mood changes. We, Black women, are 1 in 3 that suffer with postpartum depression. Racism and depression are claiming too many lives, and we are here to change the narrative with our program.
My name is Portia Holland, birth and postpartum doula and Black maternal health advocate. My Maternal Wellness Village sisters have already shared components of the Village Connect, and I'm glad to introduce another component, the 4-part childbirth education series. Together, we'll explore the journey of pregnancy, building your support team, how your body gives birth, postpartum healing, and more. COVID-19 has impacted all of us, particularly the birth community. We're prepared to address all heightened concerns around hospital delivery, including common procedures, doula support, and self-advocacy. The Village Connect engages birthing families with childbirth education, lactation, and mental health supports. Group and individual experiences are facilitated by dope and very qualified Black sisters. The Village is here. Connect with us. We're ready for your journey.
Thank you for giving me the time to share that. We just we've been working for this for quite a while, and to see it come to fruition and be able to actually provide this program for the people has been an exhilarating experience. It's been tough, but it's been well worth it to be able to roll this out now. So hopefully next year during Wellness Week, we'll have some updates and be able to show you the impact that we've been able to make with the Maternal Wellness Village and Village Connect program.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time out to come on to the Maternal Wellness Examine, because this is an awesome panel and we have so much in store for everyone tonight. So thank you so much, Lima. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So we're going to move on next to our first fireside chat. The one that's near and dear to my heart, infertility. I myself had suffered with infertility. I have PCOS. So going through a struggle of not knowing what's going on, who to go to, who to talk to was very frustrating to me. So I understand that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that went through this. So this is one that's near and dear to my heart, just like Diona, just like my relationship with Dr. Ruberu. We're here to impact the community, to impact every woman to be able to figure out exactly what's going on. And this is the reason why we're bringing this to the forefront, to help you understand a little bit more of what's going on. So tonight we have Diona Murray from Barren, and we also too have Dr. Monica Ruberu from Natural Women's Health. So I would like for them to come on. Greetings, ladies. Greetings. So this conversation will educate attendees on infertility, potential preventative measures, and resources you can tap into if you're currently experiencing infertility.
Thanks for having us, Sabrina. I thank you so much for all that you've put together this week. It's been an awesome week. I've got to attend most of them, not all of them, but I will definitely catch the replay on the things that I missed. But thank you for thinking of me to join you in this chat. And I hope to share a little bit. So I don't know if you want me to just start by introducing myself.
Yes, you could just introduce yourself, and then Dr. Ruberu introduce herself, and then I can ask you both questions that y'all can elaborate on, and we'll just keep going.
Okay. All right. So my name is, as was already said, I'm Diona Murray. I am, I guess it's easiest for me to just start with my life purpose. My life purpose and mission is to help people harvest their fruit. And I do that both professionally and passionately. So professionally, I'm a graphic designer, and I work a lot with people, helping to cultivate their ideas and their visions. You know, my slogan is give life to their vision. So I work with the mind, bringing the fruit from the mind, from my own passion and my own purpose and my own pain dealing with infertility. I founded Barren Fruit. And with that, I am also cultivating the fruit, but now we're dealing with the body. So the whole thing is to helping people produce their fruit through self-love, through faith, hope, and ultimately igniting joy. Because when people are dealing with infertility or reproductive challenges, it can really take over your life and take over your mental state. And we begin to think that we're not fruitful. So I'm able to tap into both things and really pour into people that are struggling with this. That's the best way I can describe what I do.
That's beautiful. My name is Dr. Monique Ruberu, and I am a pro-life OBGYN, and I'm going to copy you, Diona, and share my life's purpose. And my life's purpose is to know, love, and serve God in everything I do, and to help women through GYN, through gynecology, to become the best that they can possibly be, to help them take the creation that He made in them and to bring it to the maximum potential when it comes to fertility, when it comes to wellness, when it comes to health, and to really use their bodies to have wonderful relationships and live out His plan. And I have many patients that I treat on a daily basis with issues like recurrent fetal loss and miscarriage and infertility, as well as other issues. I used to practice as a typical gynecologist, writing contraceptives and basically shutting down people's cycles and not really listening to the underlying obvious things that our body is trying to speak to us. But now I practice in a very different way, and I own my own practice, Natural Women's Health, in Holy Redeemer Hospital in Meadowbrook, PA. So, all right, let's get started.
All right. So The first question for you two is, what are the warning signs that you might have reproductive challenges, and what are some of those challenges?
Which one goes first?
And Diona, you can
Go for it.
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay, so the question is, what are the warning signs that you might have reproductive challenges, and what are some of those challenges?
Okay. For me, the biggest warning sign for me was pain. I think as women, and especially for Black women, pain is something that we sometimes ignore. I know for me, I have a high threshold of pain. I'm used to managing pain. And I've dealt with pain since my menstrual started when I was 11. And which is one of the reasons why when I was encouraging people to register for this fireside chat, I said, it's not just for people that are trying to have a baby. You know, if your daughter or your child or you may not be trying to have a baby, but you're dealing with pain. You're dealing with menstrual pain. You're dealing with ovulation pain. You're dealing with irregularity. Like, join this chat, because I feel like that's information that I wish I had when I was 11. Because for me, my reproductive challenges started then. They started then, but I was told that, you know, we deal with it. You know, like we're kind of raised to, like, you suck it up, you keep going. You know, so for me, 11-year-old self, 18-year-old self, and as an adult, not ignoring that is like a big sign that our body is doing something and it needs our attention, and we need to act right away.
For me, I would definitely say when I was in training to become a gynecologist, we were taught that normal cycles could be anything from something ridiculous, something like 26 days to 32 days. And that if you had a cycle length, meaning from the first of your period to your next period of that length, that it was still normal as long as it always fell around that same time. And if you have tail and brown bleeding at the end of your periods, it's still normal. And if you have some pain during your periods, as long as it's not debilitating, it's still normal. Those are all things that we were taught. But what I've realized now is that all of those things are very abnormal. People should have 28-day cycles, period. Maximum outreach of that is maybe 27 to 29 days. But if you have anything less than 27-day cycles, that's an abnormality. It means you're lacking in a hormone that would not normally sustain your cycle, or you have something going on that's making your cycle too long, with maybe a thyroid issue or a prolactin issue or polycystic ovarian syndrome. Then if you have any abnormal bleeding, if you're having super heavy bleeding for several days and you're bleeding for more than probably 3 to 5 days, there's something else going on. If you have tail end brown bleeding at the end of your cycle, there's something else going on. If you have PMS symptoms right before your period, there's something going on. So all of these things would be considered abnormal. And all of these things affect your fertility as well, because your hormones are playing a very, very intricate dance. And it's really important that they're all balanced correctly in order to have good outcomes.
Okay, what are some preventative measures you can take to avoid or eliminate some of these challenges?
I struggle with that question because it's not like it's something that we can catch. Some things can be helped. Some things can be prevented if we're talking about the things that we eat. Some things can be, some of the reproductive challenges can come about as from an STD. So in that case, you know, stay protected, keep yourself protected. But then other things is sometimes nothing that you did. if I was dealing with endometriosis, I deal with endometriosis, fibroids, cysts. I had what's called a hydrocephalus, which is your fallopian tube, that I had. It was so scarred that nothing would ever get through, and it was filling up with fluid. So what caused that? Maybe my endometriosis. I definitely didn't ask for that endometriosis to enter my body. So like what, in that sense, for me, I struggled with that. Like how do I prevent that? I can do things to help, once I know what's going on, but I don't know if I could have did anything to prevent. So I'm interested to hear from you, Dr. Ruberu.
So I honestly believe that the majority of the problems that we deal with, there is a portion of them that are hereditary, that are passed down to us genetically. If you have your mom had endometriosis, your sisters had endometriosis, your mom had PCOS, everybody in your family's had issues with fibroids, there is a component of that you might be more susceptible. But the majority of things that a person encounters in their life when it comes to GYN health can be greatly impacted by your diet, your exercise, and just your daily habits. So it's the typical American diet across the board, whether you're a Caucasian, you're African American, anybody who lives here. Typically, we'll eat out at least once a week. And that the food that you're eating when you're eating out is probably not the best quality food that there is that you could purchase, because when you are cooking at home, you're much more likely to cook things that all of the ingredients are very good quality ingredients, or at least the best that you could afford. When we look at the system around us and like the farms, the meat farms, all of that stuff, most people in the United States, they eat a lot of meat, whether it be chicken, beef, pork, whatever. And the majority of those meats, either the grain that those animals are being fed is laced with different hormones, or the animals themselves are injected with hormones. And all of those things affect the people who consume the food. We see across the board in the United States, there are so many people using contraceptive pills. So the contraceptive pills are leaching into the water system. So if you're drinking typical tap water from the water system, you are absorbing those excessive hormones. The shampoos, the conditioners, the creams, the makeups, all of these things have chemicals called xenoestrogens, and those estrogens will get into our body and stimulate the hormone receptors and make our body think that it needs to produce more and more estrogen. The root cause of fibroids, of cysts, of fibrocystic disease in your breast, of thickened endometrial lining, of all of these things is oftentimes really high levels of estrogen and imbalanced hormones. So the first thing that I would tell somebody, if you're really serious about trying to make modifications in your diet, is to go plant-based, where you're not eating any meat, any fish, any protein, any animal protein at all, no eggs, nothing. And you're eating only fruits, vegetables, grains, and to completely cut out sugar. And I know it seems like it's near impossible, but what I always tell people is if you have something that you need to do, and if you need inspiration to do it, especially if you believe in God, one way of kind of choosing to do that is to think about who is the person in your circle who needs the most help or the most prayer, somebody who's really suffering with something, and offer up the sacrifice of not eating meat or not eating sugar for that individual. So it's no longer just about you, you're actually trying to help somebody else through your sacrifice. Not saying that, there aren't people that things won't completely change for them if they make these changes, but I would say at least 90% of the time, when people completely change their diet and their exercise and they cut out these things, it drastically impacts their bleeding patterns, their moods, their cycles, how everything works out. Then you're coming from it in a different place, right? Then you can do so much work to just, check and see, okay, let's do lab work after ovulation to see what our labs look like as far as estrogen and progesterone. Let's chart our cycle so we know what our mucus looks like, because mucus is the highway for the sperm. Let's, do the ultrasound so we can see what the uterus and the ovaries and everything look like. And there are so many, I was trained in typical medicine. I'm a medical physician, went through medical school and residency and everything else. But I know that in the alternative realm, there are so many more things, so many more options to address these issues that typical medicine knows absolutely nothing about. So don't be frustrated and think that just because a medical physician has told you, look, your only option for fertility is IVF, you have a tube that's damaged or whatever, that there isn't a possibility of restoration and to actually, achieve your goals when it comes to fertility and health and everything else.
Thank you for that. What are the practical resources people can take to address these issues? Like, what are some holistic alternatives? So you kind of like already went into that already. So if there are any additional holistic alternatives that you and Diona can let the attendees know when it comes to infertility and reproductive challenges.
I believe that question was under the category of advocacy that you wanted to make sure that we talked about, right? So I'll talk about that from an advocacy direction, if that works for you. Sabrina?
Say that one more time.
I said, I think that question you wanted me to cover under like advocacy, is that correct? Like, is it okay if I go from that direction?
Yes.
I don't want another question. Mm-hmm. So, I know we've talked about like diet and things like that, which are definitely like so important. And I have not just for me, but for my just to piggyback off of what the doctor was just saying, like even with my daughter, like I see, and clearly I'm not thinking about that, reproductive things for her, but it starts now, like, and I can just see how her body accepts way more veggies and way more like, and I find myself trying to give her other things. So I allow, like I've taken out dairy, she doesn't eat a lot of meat. And I already like just how her body digests is way better. But from an advocacy standpoint, and support that way, I don't think we do enough of self-advocacy. Like we are one of the things that when we're dealing with infertility, and one of the reasons why I even started Barren Fruit, that I realized myself when I was really, really going through it, I wish I would have realized the whole concept of advocating for yourself a whole lot earlier. I think I lost time. We want so bad to find the right doctor, and we put all of our trust in that doctor. I don't do that anymore. Like we put all of our trust in a doctor and assume that they have your best interest at heart and that they are looking at everything and that they're checking everything and they're giving you all your options. But the reality is sometimes, they're giving you the options that they know of. It's still a practice. So I'm very big on ask the doctor questions, get another doctor's opinion, ask for your reports, read your reports. When you don't know the terminology, look it up. Like you have to know your options and you have to know what's going on. Like I lost years and I researched a doctor, like, and this is me not even fully knowing what's going on. It's just, again, age of 18, the midwife I was seeing at the time told me, you're probably going to have issues when you want to have children one day. But don't worry about it right now. No, like I should have been worried about it. Maybe if I had done some of the things that Dr. Ruberu was saying, or like if I had talked with an herbalist or talked more with, with more people that know more about holistic options, maybe I would have changed my diet then. Maybe my life would have been different. Maybe I would have, you have so much in your hands to take a hold of, but if you're sitting back and letting someone else speak for you and do and just depend on what they say, we do ourselves a disservice. So that's like the biggest thing. And then also numbers are just numbers. I think sometimes numbers can scare us. We're often told usually the bad numbers, like, because I don't think the doctor wants to give you a hopeful number and then they miss it, so it's almost like the numbers can sometimes scare you. I was told I had less than 1%. Like I didn't even get a 1%. So it was enough to break me down. And this is after surgery, so if we let that stop us, but like, I believe in the power of prayer, so also a big one. Like was already said, asking for people to pray for you, asking for people to fast with you. Like for me, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of a prayer circle, choosing people that will fight for you and pray with you, like was major for me. Major. Not only praying if your desire is to have a child, but also praying because your mental and the things that you're going through are so deep, and it's like I said, it's a mind, body, and spirit thing happening with you. It's a very deep thing that happens with the woman that suffers with infertility. I truly, and I always say this every time I speak, God does something very special with the barren woman. He tells a story through you, and the child that comes from your womb is a mighty one, so it's something about having the people, self-advocacy, and having the right people in your circle advocating for you, but you first have to advocate for yourself and become a student to the issues that you're dealing with, or the challenges, I'll say. Become a student to it and learn, because that's how you'll know also, what foods to eat, what things not to do. If it's fibers that you're dealing with, definitely don't want to be, having a bowl of cereal in the morning with cow's milk, so, it's just certain things. Become a student to the challenges and do your due diligence to learn and grow from it. And I'll say one more thing. I'll say two more things. Sorry, I don't want to eat up all the time. Talk to your significant other. If there's a significant other involved, like they're also going through something too. And I know for me, I shut myself out from my husband, even though he was probably dealing with his own thing. Like it took a while, and it might sound natural to do. But it's a very difficult thing to go through. And sometimes we don't talk to our partner that's there with us. And so I encourage anybody that's listening on here that's struggling with that to really like connect, to try to connect with their significant other, and to be kind to yourself. Find an outlet, things that will fill you back up. For me, I used to write, like when I was in my lowest part dealing with it, I used to write like poems, and I don't even know if anybody else that knows me don't even know that I write poetry, but I do, but it's for myself. A lot of times all the poetry that I write is usually for me to get my thoughts out and to get my words out, and to and we don't realize how powerful that can be.
So I would say for me, the most important thing is every single person who's suffering with fertility issues, oftentimes when they go and see their gynecologist, that's usually the first point of contact that they have. They've been trying to conceive for a year or 6 months or whatever. or they've had multiple conceptions and they've ended up in miscarriage several times. They're typically booted to an infertility specialist. And the infertility specialist has kind of a menu of things that they go through. They do a barrage of tests. They do a test to check your tubes. They'll do a whole bunch of blood work on day 3 of your cycle. And then they'll do some ultrasounds to check and see if you're ovulating on your own and whatnot. And then they will come up with a conclusion. You have either low AMH, or you have, let's try a few rounds of Clomid for you. And then if that doesn't work, let's try some IUIs. And if that doesn't work, you should try IVF. And their goal oftentimes is to get you to IVF because that's their big ticket money one that they get tons of money off of. Most people have no idea that when they are choosing IVF, that what they're actually choosing is for their husband to masturbate and then to join those sperm. And after the mom is given lots of medication to hyperstimulate her ovaries and create all these follicles, they'll try and withdraw as many eggs as possible. And they'll put these together and create embryos. Now, I believe that life begins at conception, and as does every scientific book out there about embryology. It's the first step in our life process. And so every single one of those embryos are your children. And then the next step is they'll look at those children and they'll grade them to see which ones are good, which ones are bad, and they'll discard some. So you're already losing children there. And then they'll put several away for freezing, and then they'll probably put 2 into your uterus. And then if those 2 take off and become 3 or become 4, then the next question is, okay, how many are you going to let us abort or reduce so that you'll have a successful pregnancy? And then because you have other embryos in the freezer, you're kind of tied into this over and over until you've used all those embryos. And oftentimes they will tell these moms, hey, you absolutely have infertility, but we can't really find a reason for it, anything that we can fix. So we're just going to say you have unexplained infertility. And my number one message is there is no such thing as unexplained infertility. There is absolutely always a cause for infertility. There's something wrong. And it's just a matter of the majority of gynecologists and reproductive endocrinologists are not looking in the right places, because the solution is not going to make them lots of money to be able to solve these issues for women. And so NAPRO technology trained OBGYN physicians or family medicine physicians, we're people who our fertility practice and our treatment of patients with infertility is not based on pushing people towards IVF by any means. We're all about trying to preserve life in every possible aspect and to respect life at every stage along the way. And so when somebody comes to me with a history of infertility, the first thing I do is I take a full history and I find out, okay, what are your periods like? What are your bleeding patterns like? How many days do you bleed for? How long are your cycles? What is the length of time between the time of ovulation and the next period? What is the mucus like when you are about to ovulate? Is it really stretchy? Is there an abundance of it, or is there a minimal amount of it? Because every single one of these things means something. And it's a point where we can actually influence and increase your chances for fertility. And oftentimes it's not just one thing that's causing you to have fertility challenges, it's multiple little things. So looking for all of these reasons, really looking deeply into the thyroid, checking if there are any thyroid antibodies, seeing what supplements you can use to improve the function of your thyroid, looking into your adrenal gland, looking to make sure that there's nothing we need to do there, looking into your diet, looking into your exercise, looking into your faith practices, because oftentimes people who have zero faith or who are not practicing their faith, they will feel like they have to carry the whole world on their shoulders and they have nobody to give up all of the tension and the stress that they're walking through. And so what happens when your stress levels go up? Your cortisol levels go up. Then when your cortisol levels go up, it steals all of the progesterone that you need. And that progesterone is super important for sustaining any pregnancies, for sustaining the length of your cycle, for maintaining your moods, all of those things. So everything is interrelated. And if you leave out any of that investigation, you're going to be missing key parts in how you can make a positive impact for a woman and a man who are suffering with fertility. Then oftentimes one thing I've noticed is that the man will go and he'll give the semen analysis, and they'll examine it, they'll look at it, and they'll say, yeah, you have lower motility, or you have this, or you have that. But oftentimes they never offer him any sort of supplements to remedy the problem. Their only solution is, oh, so you should totally go for IVF. But in our case, what we do is we try and help the man achieve the maximal point of his own fertility. And we try and give him supplements that will address all of those issues to help him have superpowered sperm so that when the time comes, he'll be ready to go. And so with all of these things, you know, whether it be endometriosis, there are natural supplements you can use to reduce endometriosis. Even when you go in and you have surgery for endometriosis, if you just burn those implants, it's always going to come back. So you need to go to somebody who knows to actually resect them. And then you need to modify your diet and take supplements which will prevent them from coming back. When it comes to polycystic ovarian syndrome, there are wonderful opportunities with supplements to help give you a more regular cycle. And once you're charting and you have an understanding of exactly when you're ovulating and you know exactly when to try to conceive, your chances of conceiving are much, much higher. And especially if you understand what your hormones are like after ovulation, you can supplement back, whether it be with seeds or with compounded hormones or whatever it is you may need, but there are always natural ways of going about that. So my greatest resource would absolutely be to go online and Google and find a physician who knows something about NAPRO technology, NAPRO technology. And if you find someone who can do that for you, I mean, there's two of us in Philadelphia itself. There's myself at Natural Women's Health, and my website is naturalwomenshealth.com. And there's Dr. Delia, who is at the Diona Center in Norristown. And so in our area, we're both available and happy to help anybody who comes to us. And even if there are women who say, you know, I can't afford to do that because I don't have infertility insurance, the majority of times, because we are not setting people up for IVF and stuff, we don't charge for infertility. Anything that we do, any work that we do, we would label it as we're addressing hormonal imbalance, or we're addressing endometriosis, or we're addressing PCOS, or we're addressing PMS. And that's how we get the work done. So you don't have to have infertility insurance to get this work taken care of. And if there are women who have zero funding, they don't have any insurance whatsoever, they are people who would typically go to Planned Parenthood, I'd be happy to see them in my office anyway. And we have funds to help those women as well. So it's available to everybody.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Ruberu. That was amazing. That was so much information for all of us as panelists, and then also to our attendees. Thank you so much. We're going to go into Q&A right now. So any of our attendees have any questions, if you would just drop them in the Q&A box. That way I can ask Diona or Dr. Ruberu the question. Oh, Dr. Ruberu, can you put your, okay, never mind, you already did it. He's right on it.
One thing that, I mean, I would like to say is just, you don't have to have a problem to go and see a NAPRO trained OBGYN. You know, like oftentimes I'll meet people and I'll ask them, do you have any GYN issues? And the answer is always no. And then when I start talking to them about their bleeding patterns and asking them the key questions, there are a lot of abnormalities there, and they just never realized it because everybody around them has similar type of periods or similar type of issues, and they all thought that it was just normal. I can't tell you the number of times that I've encountered women who have hair growing around their nipples or hair on their belly button. And I'm like, so did you ever realize that that's a sign of higher levels of testosterone? And they're like, what? I thought everybody had that. All of my friends have that. All of my sisters have that. And they had no idea that they likely had polycystic ovarian syndrome. They had no clue. So, I mean, just, it's always worthwhile checking in. I start seeing girls, depending on the situation, you know, oftentimes even in their teens, if they have issues with irregular cycles or periods that are painful or anything, I'll see them way early. But definitely like right before they go to college or before they go away, I definitely want to see them and touch base with them and check in.
Mhm. I do have one question. So what's the changes, the chances of becoming pregnant after chemo treatment?
So it all depends. If you have chemotherapy and then you are no longer ovulating and you're not having periods, then it's hard to say exactly how much damage was done to your ovaries and if those eggs are viable. I would say in a person like that, your best shot, if you're completely menopausal after chemotherapy, is to seek out a Chinese herbalist and see if there's anything that they can do to reverse the damage that the chemotherapy has done.
Okay. What if you don't have, I'm sorry, once you have had fibroid procedure, what can you do to avoid them from coming back?
The fibroids are typically caused by higher levels of estrogens. So the first thing I would do is Google xenoestrogens, Xeno estrogen, ESTROGEN, xenoestrogens. And I would look up every single one of those chemicals. It would tell you, there's so many articles out there that say, okay, this is this particular xenoestrogen you would find in red dye. This particular xenoestrogen you would find in makeup. This particular xenoestrogen you would find in shampoos and conditioners. And go and check all of your stuff. Make sure that you're not using any of those products that have any of those chemicals. Stop using water bottles, the plastic water bottles. Only get glass water bottles or stainless steel water bottles. Stop using the unfiltered water from the taps. Get like a really good quality Berkey filter that filters everything out and only use that water to cook and to drink with. Stop putting plastics in the microwave and in the dishwasher, and only store your food in stainless steel and in glass containers. Like all of these things leach these xenoestrogens, which boost your estrogen levels. Stop eating meat, because the meat, unless you're eating grass-fed organic meat and you're never eating out any meat, all of those meats have hormones in them that are boosting your estrogen levels. And then get your labs checked. I mean, just go and see an APR doc who'll check your estrogen and progesterone levels after ovulation. You can get 5 levels drawn and just see what it looks like. If you have crazy high estrogen, there are supplements that you can take to change the way that estrogen is metabolized so that it won't have the bad effects that it typically would.
Okay, what if you don't have infertility issues but want to freeze eggs due to age? I was considering since I am 37 and want to have kids.
So I would absolutely say no, because of the fact that it leads exactly into that conversation I was having before. The only reason to freeze your eggs is so that you can have IVF down the road. And if you have IVF down the road, then what you're heading to is creating all of these embryos that several of them are going to be discarded. Every time you freeze an embryo or you freeze an egg, you're going to be altering in some minute way the genetic capability of those eggs or of those embryos. And if you do the research, you'll find out that the majority of children that come from IVF have a higher incidence of cancer. They have a higher incidence of anomalies simply because of that freezing process. So it's not a good idea. I know that society is constantly telling people, you know, you need to put off having children, you need to finish your, you know, education, you need to finish your career, you need to all these things. But I would say no. And they all also would say, you know, if you're over the age of 35, you shouldn't be having children. And I would say no to that too. Yes, your risk for Down syndrome would increase, but how many Down syndrome people do you know that aren't like the most amazing people in this world? Granted, I mean, I know that we would all prefer to have a child who does not have Down syndrome. We'd all prefer to have a child that is completely normal and doesn't have to deal with those challenges. but I would definitely not say, oh, if you have a Down syndrome child, you should get an abortion, which is what the majority of Down syndrome babies' fate are. So.
Thank you. Well, this was very powerful. I'll just take one more question. What are the doctor's thoughts on attempting pregnancy while on dialysis?
That's a good question. I think it all depends on the function of your body, and like kidneys are really, really, really important. If you're having dialysis on a regular basis, the dialysis is taking over the job of cleansing the blood and everything else. If every other aspect of your health is healthy, then you might still be able to pull it off. But obviously it puts you at a very high risk, you know, during that pregnancy. It would really be something that, you know, you'd have to put a lot of thought and consideration into, whether with the dialysis you'd be able to carry the pregnancy to term, but it begs the question of how did you end up in dialysis? You know, are you in dialysis with renal failure because of some autoimmune issue, or is it because of, you know, high blood pressure, or is it because of some sort of cancer, or what exactly is it that put you into that position, and what is the rest of your health like?
Thank you. So I just want to take the time to thank you, Dr. Ruberu, and you, Diona, for this amazing Infertility Reproductive Challenge fireside chat. It was amazing. I learned so much, and I'm quite sure everyone did too. Again, I just want to thank you guys for coming on for this fireside edition for Infertility and Reproductive Challenges. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate you guys.
Welcome.
Thank you. So next we're going to go on to the doula fireside chat. So this conversation will discuss what a doula is, why they are important, and the impact a doula can have on your birthing and overall gynecological experience. So I'm going to introduce you to Iris from Phoenix Rising Birthworks, and Camilla, a licensed anesthetician and energy healer. So welcome, ladies. So I'll start with you.
How are you?
I'm good, and yourself. So I'm gonna start with you. Want you to just introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay, sounds good. Peace and love, everyone. My name is Iris Elena Kimbrough. I am here in Philadelphia, and I am the founder of Phoenix Rising Birthworks and the Purple Lotus Project. I work as I'm a birth worker in the city and in the surrounding area. I actually use the title birth keeper more than I do doula, but that is the word of that's the flavor right now. People know what a doula is, but I will get more into why I distinguish between birth keeper and doula as we chat. And I also, you know, work with folks as a birth consultant and as a holistic lactation counselor. I do a lot of work working with families to move through the transition into parenthood. A lot of times we don't really have that conversation enough throughout the pregnancy. Like what is the pregnant person feeling? What is the partner feeling? How is this family, you know, being birthed or changing if they already have other children? Like those are the kind of conversations that I also have a lot with clients and with the community in general, you know, when I do workshops and things of that nature. So yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you, Iris. Camilla, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Carmelia Rameau. I am a licensed esthetician in South Florida. Also am a energy healer, and pretty much I incorporate holistic practices in my treatments. I organic and my approach to uses in a very natural way, especially in South Florida. It's very needed here to try to help women feel very confident naturally in the skin they're in. But I've also lived in the Philadelphia area for quite a while, which has brought me to Miss Iris, who was my doula with my son, Kai, and lived there for a couple of years. And I've just recently moved back to the area.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome, welcome. So we're going to start the doula fireside chat. So what is a doula and why are they important?
So I think I just heard a child. It was either my child or your child. I don't know whose child. But so doulas. So basically doula, birth worker, birth keeper, birth attendant. In many ways, these are the same roles, just with very slight variations on what exactly it means. So a doula in general is a support person. You work with folks, in pregnancy, you attend the birth, you work with them in postpartum. And while you're working with them, you are getting them ready for the process of birth. People have different focuses, different ways that they work with their clients in this role. Some of us are more spiritual, some of us are more medical, some of us are kind of a mix of the two. And those are just some of the differences. There are some people that work, specifically with folks who are trying to conceive. So that's called a fertility doula, and they would be guiding people through, some of those journeys that we were just, talking about and hearing about in the previous fireside chat, and, working through those things. If whether fertility has been an issue or not, there are people that work with families as a doula in that time. I started more so as what you would call a birth doula, and I started in a community doula program that's run by Maternity Care Coalition out of North Philly. So in that role, that's how I met Carmelia. And in that specific role, community doulas are, it's kind of like a mix of being a birth attendant and a social worker a little bit, in a way, not completely, but I say that because you do have to be aware of the resources in your area. You need to know how to plug people in. You need to have those listening and counseling skills to, work with your clients and understand what they need and be that support system that they need and understand how to work with each person differently. So you have a little bit of your counseling in there. You have your social work aspect where you're plugging people in with resources if they need them. Then you have your actual knowledge about birth and labor and lactation and, postpartum changes and challenges, and even how to set yourself up, most importantly, how to set yourself up for success.
You went out. Your voice went out.
Okay.
There you
What
go.
was the last part you heard?
Say it again.
What was the last part you heard?
This kind of go back to a little bit. You could just pick up wherever because I didn't really get the whole. I was trying to, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so basically, it's a support person. We work with people to make sure that they understand how birth works as far as, physically, spiritually. Well, I deal with the spirit. Not all doulas deal with the spirit, so let me clarify. So physically, what's going on, making sure that, you understand what's going on with your providers, because unfortunately, with sometimes in dealing with
You went out again, Iris.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
We have to be aware of medical interventions and things of that nature, because that way we can help navigate those conversations with our clients so that we can give them the information and suggest different questions to ask
Iris, you went out again. Camelia, are you still there?
Are
Hello?
you hearing me, or is it still coming in and out?
It's going in and out with both of you.
Okay. Do you want me to try to come out and come back in?
Let me see if this one works.
Okay.
So you're just basically explaining the importance of, why, why you should basically have a doula, the reasons why and what you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really any reason you want. It really depends on what is important to you, which is why anytime I work with a client, you do a consultation or two to really suss out what the person needs, what the person wants. You make clear how you work and how you don't work, because you want to make sure that you're the right kind of support person for them. Just because I'm a doula and I know the same things as many other, birth workers, it doesn't mean that I'm for everybody. I'm pretty sure I'm not for everybody. I have a very specific way that I work, and that's okay. But I also got about, 10, 12 other folks that I can point you to if, I'm not for you. So, so we're talking about reasons why you would have one.
Right. I mean, okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay.
So what are some of the key things that women should know and understand while going through the birthing process?
What are some of the key things women should know about going through the birthing process?
Mm-hmm.
That's really a loaded question because, again, it's kind of individual.
Okay.
It depends on what they want to know. If they want to know specifically what's going to happen moment by moment, that's impossible. I can't tell you that. I can tell you in general that there's an early labor, there's an active labor and transition, and then you're birthing your baby. Like, that's the 1, 2, 3 down the lane that happens. But there's so many things, and there's such a big range of normal in all of those phases and places. For me to give you a bullet list of exactly what to know, I can't make it quite that easy. And anybody who does is lying to you, honestly. I mean, it's just that's just not how this works, It's just not. I have three children, and all of their births were different. You know what I mean? They had the same outcome. There's 3 kids running around, but the whole way is different. But yeah, in general, I go through, what does early labor look like? What are the signs? What are some signs that maybe you're experiencing something called prodromal labor, which is when your body is kind of like getting in gear, but it's not really pushing through into established labor yet, which is something that we find we have to talk more and more about with pregnant folks because of the way we live in this society. We either sitting down on our butts a lot because we work office jobs, or we're standing a lot because we're doing retail or teaching or working in restaurants or other things or being doctors or other kinds of jobs like that, where you're doing one activity or the other. And so then, and also a lot of us, regardless of socioeconomic status, work until we're in labor. Like, there's people who go into labor at work all the time. So we don't get a chance to, as one of my mentors said, drop into the labor and into the pregnancy before you even get to the labor. And so that's where I think this preoccupation of, run it down to me, what's the process? What's the process? This is why I deal in spirit. Because unless you understand the spiritual side of pregnancy and birth, you will stay frozen in this preoccupation of knowing every little thing that's going to happen to you. We can understand the basic parameters. We can understand that labor can be difficult, that it can be uncomfortable, downright painful for some people, depending on how they register discomfort and pain. And that's the kind of things that we really want to work on, so that people don't confuse or start to think of their labor surges as torture, because then that sends off a whole chain reaction biochemically when we're talking about brain messaging and all those kind of things. Once you start thinking you're suffering, baby, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? So instead of worrying about what's going to happen and being scared and like all of these things, this is how, you know, doulas and birth keepers work with folks to tell you, yes, these kind of things, you know, will happen in general. Your normal will be as it presents itself. And what can we do to keep you comfortable in this space? How can we keep your space sacred? How can we have the things that you need to stay comforted, so that you're, as long as you're comforted, your body will continue to move in the way that it needs to move to birth that baby. And also having a full birth team, which means, you know, you have your midwife or your OB or whoever this other person is that's going to look at more of the clinical or medical side of how things are going. Then that person, while they also ideally will also honor the spiritual side of it, they're the person that's going to be looking at the clinical aspect to make sure that everything's okay. That's not necessarily something that you want the birthing person thinking about. Anything that, you know, unless they're picking up on something intuitively, but you want to really kind of get people out of that mind frame of trying to keep track of every little thing that's happening, because that's dissociative, and birth is the last place that you need dissociation.
How about you, Camellia?
Yeah, so I'm so sorry I was breaking in and out a couple minutes ago, but what question are we on?
So can you just give a little background of you said that Iris was your doula. Could you give
Right.
the attendees like
Okay.
your experience of having a doula?
Right. So being first time mother, pregnancy opened up a lot of doors that, especially dealing with trauma, that I did not know. So at times I was kind of comfortable dealing, you know, asking questions from family members, friends, and she was pretty much my go-to person throughout my pregnancy, to pretty much confide in, you know, with whether it was working, whether it was just health, diet. She was there, supportive. Going back to working, I worked until my 9th month, and pretty much had some issues with the workforce, you know, being pregnant. And sometimes you're uncomfortable because the majority of people say, girl, you're okay. You can work throughout the whole pregnancy till you give birth. You know, I did it. Your mom did it. My sister did it. You can do it too. But I did have a preterm labor scare that really showed me, okay, no, I need to take, you know, control over the situation. As far as my birth, I can say, like she said, she helped me keep my the whole experience very sacred. I didn't necessarily need her as support through the delivery, but I was so happy that she was there to make sure that everything the hospital was doing was on point. You know, sometimes when you are in delivery, you're making sure you're okay, you're making sure the baby is okay, but you don't know if they're doing their job. So she was there guarding that, you know, and yeah, even postpartum, coming afterwards, coming for the lactation, breastfeeding, she was there. So, you know, and through generational, we aren't really taught, you know, breastfeeding. We're not taught all of these things that are coming to the forefront now. So yeah, my son was born healthy and strong, and I think a lot of it had to do with having her by my side.
Oh, I feel all special.
Thank you for that. Can you suggest, Iris, any free or low cost tools, resources attendees can tap into to assist them engaging in doula in their birthing experience?
Yes, I can. But first, I just want to speak to the fact that this is something that we do quite often. We have this conversation quite often. My colleagues and myself, my birth worker Kindred and myself, about the struggle of wanting to provide free and low cost services versus the fact that we very much so need to be paid. and how tiresome it is that we tend to be the ones that get asked where the free stuff is at. So there are programs. There is still Maternity Care Coalition. They still have their doula program. It's called the Perinatal Health Worker Program now because it has a slightly different focus. I mean, they still attend your births and like blah, 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 but the program is different from when I was involved in it. So it would be best to contact Maternity Care Coalition directly to see, you know, what the parameters are and so on and so forth. It's a little bit more involved of the program as far as like family involvement in certain ways, as far as like the data collection and stuff like that. That's what you also have to understand with the free programs, is that it's usually connected with a nonprofit or a hospital or both. And they also want to be able to collect data for whatever research or to keep the grant going or both. So if you're not down with people being in your business, that's what you have to understand. Now, you know, it may not be something super invasive or anything of that nature, but just understand that if you know it's free, that there will be something asked of you. But that's not to say that if you pay your doula that I'm not asking you for anything either, because I absolutely am. I am asking you to be accountable, to respect my gangster, respect my craft, you know, because if I'm working with you and I am giving you that heart energy and that space and that physical energy, that you will be, you know, that we're going to be calling, you know, regularly and checking in, and that, you know, you said you were going to drink those herbs to help with your blood pressure. You're actually doing that. Okay, great. Like, you know what I mean? There's accountability regardless of what type of birth worker you're working with. So that's something that I just wanted to put out there, because especially if people are dealing with free programs, there's a lot of times when people tend not to take it seriously. And these are real folks going out there, giving out their real energy to assist you. So just be mindful of that, whether it's free or not. Also, in regards to that, think about the fact of whether or not you can actually afford something. Many of us can afford something. So even if you're stashing away like $50 a week, $50 a month, whatever it is, stash it, because even if it doesn't go to your birth support, maybe you get, you know, linked into one of these programs and they're able to provide you your birth support person. Still stack some money. That can be your postpartum support money. That can be your lactation support money. That can be, you know, money towards some other real things that you need for your birth and postpartum experience. I'm not saying you can't have a baby shower, but maybe have somebody put some on your Cash App towards your birth and postpartum support at the same time. Because I'm your sister. I live right here in the hood. I also have a family to feed. So please don't ask me for free first. I barter. We do all kinds of stuff. But, you know, we also are not a poor people. We Blackonia out here. Our GDP is like the size of a small nation. Just those of us who call ourselves Black or African American or from the islands or from the continent and we live here in this nation, we got money. So let's also think about financing a little bit better first. But if you truly, truly need services for free, there is Maternity Care Coalition and there is PALS. Otherwise, make a spreadsheet. We can work it out. The Cash App's going. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's the deal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's of course, being a mother is one of the best experiences you can ever have in a lifetime. But I mean, the doula is it's amazing. We're actually close friends now, you know, and she still checks up on my son. And the value of having a doula is, do you want to have a healthy family? Like, you know, that's the value. Do you want to have a healthy child? You know, start that journey. And yeah, you know, God have another child. She will be right by my side. This is a long partnership. I would say you're investing in time. You know, it's not like it's not like you're going to get your nails and the hair. Go to the best person, the cheapest, you know, the one that has the deal. No, this is a person that you're going to stick by, you know, for the rest of your life. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Definitely.
So yes, that's so important. Thank you, sis. But for real, I say all the time, we are here trying to birth a nation. You know what I mean?
So as we do have our first question.
Cool.
How long is the postpartum doula care recommended?
Oh, this is another broad question. Okay, so like usually doulas only visit folks like a couple of times after the baby is born. Um, However, it also depends on how you were trained. Typically, if you're dealing with somebody who is trained and works in a way that's similar to like how the major, quote unquote major doula training organizations like DONA, Kappa, ICEA, these are the names that we hear the most because, they are run by the dominant culture and they have the money to make sure that we hear their names. Their way of doing it is very transactional. So it's like 1 to 3 visits before the birth, you attend the birth, and then 1 to 3 visits after the birth, which means you're probably done with your doula at about maybe 6 weeks postpartum, if you're lucky. Some people, throw in them 3 visits in the first 3 weeks. And honestly, you know, so again, that's the importance of always doing consultations with people that you want to work with, and also doing some of your own groundwork before even scheduling a consultation. Like, don't schedule a consultation with somebody just because they say they're a doula. You really want to be sure about what kind of support you want and actively look for those people. So when you're looking at people's Instagrams and Facebooks and websites, and when you're doing that word of mouth kind of thing, like, hey girl, like, do you know anybody, or blah, 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 like, how we do in community, make sure you're asking those questions. If you want someone that's going to be with you for 6 to 12 weeks, I personally work, now I started working with people longer this past year. So I work with people through that first 12 weeks. I kind of was doing that anyway, but I just made that like an official thing that I do. Like, I will definitely be with you for the first 3 months, that 4th trimester, because I know how important it is to have that kind of support. And I personally had that support with my last daughter. I had a really great traditional community midwife, and she was with me. And so that baby was about 3 months old. And that was a game changer, because all kinds of things, even if you have a perfect, beautiful, everything went beautifully kind of birth, and like the baby is great and breastfeeding is great and if all the things that you thought mattered about birth and, pregnancy and birth and postpartum, if all those X's have been checked, most likely there will still be something that you didn't even think about that's going to come up for you. So that's why you really want to make sure that support system is there. But I will say that unfortunately, a lot of you, there is a large contingency of doulas still that do very varying degrees of, postpartum support. There's no like, quote unquote industry standard. So you really have to go and think, well, do I want to deal with these folks that deal with it strictly as like a business, and this is like a thing that they're giving me, like a service, like how a plumber would, fix your sink kind of service, because that's how some people think of it. They charge for every little thing in that way, and that's fine. Or do you want someone who, while they may be charging a fair exchange for their time with you, they're giving you a more holistic package? They're understanding that you need that care at least 6 full weeks, preferably up through 12, but at least 6 full weeks of real support. Because again, if you're dealing with OBs, they're not going to see you before 6 weeks anyway. So you need somebody there with you to help you get those ducks in a row, and, bring through the meals, be there, for those calls if you have questions about lactation, all these things, because these are all people, now that we're talking about living in COVID times, your OB don't want to see you unless something's really wrong with you. The lactation consultant might not want to come over unless something's really wrong with you or the baby, as far as like the baby's just not eating at all and everybody's pulling their hair out. Then you'll get the LC to come to your house. Whereas if you have a birth worker like me, who's also a lactation counselor, who's been working with you the whole time anyway, I'm going to come over with a platter anyway. We're going to talk about this breastfeeding. You see what I'm saying? So that's what you want to look for. Hire me. But seriously, but but you want to look for holistic care, or whatever care looks like to you. But you want to be very clear about that before you even start doing consultations with folks to see who you might hire or what program you go with, if you need to or choose to go through a program. Each program is a little different too. So definitely ask all the questions before you say yes.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm looking and we don't have any more questions. I'll just give it a little bit more second to see if we have one more, because we can answer one more question. Okay. So I would just like to thank Iris and Camelia for coming on to give us our doula fireside chat. We got a lot of great information about what is a doula. We heard from an experienced mother with a doula. That was amazing to hear everything that you went through and experience, the wonderful experience you had to having a doula. They are so needed. So thank you again for coming on. I appreciate you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Sabrina.
you. Thank you.
This was amazing and so needed, and I'm so happy to be here for year number 2. Let's. I'm gonna see you on year 22. Let's get it.
Yes, I'm definitely. Will definitely continue. Thank you.
Yes. Enjoy the rest of the evening, y'all. Peace.
You too. So next we're going to go on to our next fireside chat. So our next fireside chat will be with Anisha and Ronald with coping with loss. So this conversation will provide coping strategies for individuals who are unable to reproduce or have loss of a child during pregnancy. So I want to introduce Ronald and Anisha. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for coming on.
Hello.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you for having us.
So if you guys can introduce yourself and just let us know about, your company, about yourself, everything.
I'm Anisha Stanley, and I am from Saginaw, Michigan. I'm joined here with my husband today, and I'm the president and the founder of the Keys of Hope Foundation. And our mission is to break the silence, promote the awareness, and support families who've experienced pregnancy loss, infant loss, and infertility in our region.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ronald Stanley, Anisha's husband. I'm the vice president of the Keys of Hope Foundation. And I also work in the educational field as a dean of students at a local high school here in Saginaw.
Thank you. Welcome. So let's dive right in. We're going to do a discussion on the dealing with loss from a male and a female perspective. Mm-hmm. So you can start.
Okay. Well, let's see. First of all, I just want to say if there's any attendees tonight who have experienced pregnancy loss, infant loss, child loss, be it a stillbirth, a miscarriage, an ectopic pregnancy, chemical pregnancy, a molar pregnancy, we want to offer you our condolences. We understand how painful that can be, that experience is, because my husband and I have experienced losing 5 babies ourselves, 3 miscarriages and 2 ectopic pregnancies. And just for me as a woman and as a mom, it was just very devastating to experience such pain. I actually didn't even know that type of pain existed until I felt it myself. You hear about it, but to actually experience that is on a whole nother level. And so my experience as a woman, as the mother, I can talk about as far as like our first miscarriage. We're high school sweethearts. And so for me, we had a plan, or we had a vision of what we thought our family would be like. We both come from a family of 4, and our parents come from big families. And so, we just knew, hey, we wanted a big family and things as well. But with our first baby that we lost, that was really painful for me. I just didn't have a lot of knowledge or understanding about how to cope with that pain. And particularly, I think it was because, that stigma that's around pregnancy loss. A lot of people don't talk about miscarriage, and so you don't really know how to deal with it. And I think we had agreed at that time that because no one had knew, we were fairly nearing like the end of the first trimester. We kind of just didn't talk about it until after we had our daughter, our rainbow baby, Sinai. And I actually was grieving still that baby when I was pregnant with her. I didn't even know I was pregnant with her. And so we, because of our experience, we decided to wait for about 2 years before we decided to try again to have more children. because we wanted to enjoy her. We know what that was like to experience a loss. And so 2017, we got pregnant again. Unfortunately, we had another miscarriage. And then at that same time, my aunt passed away, I think the same day. And so I had to took that loss and really step up and be there for my family at the time. So I kind of dived into just trying to keep myself busy and not really think about it as much. Still not understanding what's going on with my body, or not understanding the full concept of how to cope with this like the right way, other than talking to my husband about it. It was until we experienced, that was an ectopic pregnancy, and that one was totally that was a big blow to me, probably because I took the first two pregnancy losses, and it came to a head then. And on top of that, it was an ectopic pregnancy. And so the treatment for that was methotrexate, which is like a high form of chemotherapy. And so as if the pregnancy loss wasn't enough, just to hear that the treatment that only was available was either surgery or the methotrexate, you know, that was like another blow to me. And so from there, a lot of things started happening within me internally. I began to have like anxiety, nightmares, PTSD. I had suicide ideation because it was just too much. It was so much that was going on. And we are a family of faith. And I felt like, you know, I did everything that church says to do, you know, to pray, to stand on the word, to confess scriptures. And you know, I'm like, God, I pay my tithe and offering. I do everything. Like, oh my God, I still feel like I failed. Like, what's going on? And so my faith went to like to a low spot. But I knew I needed God. But at that time, I was really upset, and I just didn't know how to manage that. I didn't know that I had a lot going on within myself, which happens to be actually understanding like the 5 stages of grief. I didn't know that that was even such a thing. And I called around trying to get support, you know, or help. And unfortunately, sometimes like even in our own families, they're like, oh, you're young, you can try again, you'll be fine, you know, it happens, you know, the typical cliche kind of things, but that's not what somebody wants to hear, you know, or they're like, oh, focus on the child you have. And it's not that I wasn't focusing on my baby that I did have, is my other children matter to me as well. You know, we were expecting them and we wanted them as well. So I'm heartbroken about that. That's what, you know, is bothering me right now in this season the most, or at that time. And so months later, we went on to, we got pregnant again, and again, my doctor called and said, you know, some things are looking different with your blood work. And so that pregnancy ended in miscarriage, and we waited about another 6 months or so, and we found out we were pregnant again. And that was our last pregnancy, and that was our 5th baby, and that was in 2018. And so what happened was I thought I had a miscarriage or was having a miscarriage. My body went through the process and everything, only to find out like a couple weeks later, our doctor called in because my blood work was looking different. And we went in, they did an ultrasound, and they did 2 ultrasounds. They did a vaginal ultrasound also. And that one, it was different because when she did the ultrasound, after thinking already that I've had, you know, a miscarriage, to our surprise, there was a heartbeat, and it was strong. And I was like, oh my God, you know, I was excited because I thought we lost the baby, like what's going on? But because of the way everything was measuring, the baby was growing at the rate that it was supposed to, which kind of explained why I was feeling a little ill as well. But it also turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy. And my tube was in the early stages of eruption. And so we got the news after hearing our baby's heartbeat that we had less than an hour to be in surgery to save my life. And so that was just real devastating, you know. And for me, a lot of times with the losses, the bedside manners really wasn't there, really wasn't good. You know, I remember waking up that time from the surgery and they were like, oh, okay, this is what happened to you. Here's your discharge papers and everything. Like, go home and, you know, pretty much figure it out. But that's really hard. That's hard to hear. It's hard to go through. It's hard to experience. Again, as a woman, I just felt like less of myself. I felt very guilty about what happened. And I didn't understand all the different feelings and everything that I was going through. And it was really just a lot of grief at that time. I didn't know what was going on, but I began to turn to God and just seek him about the direction that I can go in. And then he began to speak to me about the purpose, my purpose, and actually what he was going to do as a result of everything that we had went through, what we've experienced. And he had a plan. And obviously we started Keys of Hope. And that was maybe about like 9 months later, actually on our due date, which would have been the due date of the baby that we lost. We launched Keys of Hope. So we didn't give birth to a baby that day, but we did give birth to purpose. And that was just being able to support other families in our community who would go on to unfortunately experience pregnancy loss, infant loss, and child loss, and also who struggles with infertility. Because at that time, my husband and I only had ourselves. We called several agencies, the hospitals, different places for therapy. There was no support systems, no support groups. There was like no one here to talk to. And I began to just always cry out to God and ask him, you know, why don't I have any support? What's going on? The only people that I felt like could have helped me were passed away. My grandmother had just passed away maybe 4 months before I started experiencing my pregnancy losses. And Ronald's mother, she's experienced stillbirths, right? Some stillbirths and pregnancy losses as well. But I knew their stories. But the women who could have helped me through that, you know, they weren't there. They weren't here to help me. And so that was a little rough. And so God just began to just tell me, well, you know, those things don't exist in my community yet, which we live in somewhat of a small town. He said that they didn't exist yet because I had yet to create them. So I said, oh, okay. You know, how do you, from a broken place, I'm still broken myself, God. It's like, I don't have all the answers. Like, how am I supposed to encourage and support somebody else when I'm still hurt a little bit, and well, a lot, not a little bit, a lot. I'm still hurting. I don't know what to do. Our marriage was very much impacted at that time. Because I just honestly didn't even know who I was, to be honest. And I just didn't even know what to do. Like, common sense wasn't even common. It wasn't even sensible. Like, a lot of the things I went to my husband about, I'm sure he looked at me like, okay, like, you can figure that out. But honestly, I could not. It really took a toll on my mental health as well as my physical health and my emotional health. And even to this day, I'm doing better, but I still have some scarring, you know, across my heart. I have like the Band-Aid that's there and it's trying to heal, and I'm doing the best that I can to get the grief out of my body. But it's a lot of work that I'll have to do, and I'll never get over, you know, losing my children or anything like that. But I'm glad that we started Keys of Hope, because we are able to impact our community and the families in our community and support them and give them their keys to get back to life after loss, and live in hope and try to conceive again, or understand that they still can be fruitful, even if they're not parents, or maybe the way that they're God is calling them to parent may not be that they are going to have children naturally. Maybe it's through adoption, maybe it's through foster parenting, maybe it's through you know, being that super aunt or that uncle, you know, to your nieces or nephews. Maybe it's a different way that God is calling you to parent. And so I'm glad that we are now that major and only, unfortunately, the only resource, but fortunately, here in our region. And we're graduating a group, our third cohort next week. So I'm happy about that. But I always look back and say, well, how did we get here to support all these families that have signed up? I have to always go back to February 27 of 2014 is when we experienced our first loss. So I think just overall, just as a woman, it's a lot that pregnancy loss does have on a woman. But if you open yourself up to trying to figure out, well, what's going on, and is there purpose? Or I like to look at things in my life and say, okay, what's the purpose? Is there something that I need to do with this pain? And what is it that God is asking of me? You can't have a story or a testimony without going through the test. And a lot of times that's what we're doing. We're just living out our testimonies. It don't feel good, but like his word says, he will turn it around and work it out for your good. So what about you from like a male perspective you want to share?
Yeah, so from my perspective as a man, my experience was totally different, especially during all of our losses. As a man, you know, I always feel, and in general, I think most men feel, you know, that of course they're the protector in the relationship, they're the stronger one. So in each one of our losses, I kind of went into like protector, like emergency mode. So basically, I kind of just had to set my feelings aside. You know, each experience was very hurtful, a lot of disappointment, because, you know, when you get the news that, when I got the news that she was pregnant, you know, there's that anticipation and things to come, you know, as you go through the pregnancy, you look at the different stages and you get excited. But then all of a sudden, when something goes wrong, you go into the doctor and then you find out, you know, that you're going to lose the baby. So there's a bunch of highs and lows to it. But during those times, it's kind of like I had to set my feelings aside to be there for my wife because she needed the most, because she was experiencing, you know, like a double whammy, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So, like I said, yeah, I just kind of went into protector mode, and I just made sure that my focus was on her, and that's how, you know, I kind of got through it. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So my next question is, can you guys share coping mechanism individuals and couples can implement in their daily life to deal with their loss?
Yes. A couple of things that I would recommend to share are some things that I actually want to say, especially for just the women individually, is that, well, number one, I want you to know that your babies are still so much alive. You know, they're not here on earth, but they are in heaven, and that they are safe in the arms of Jesus and God, and they're growing up in heaven, and you will see them one day. And that leads me actually into one of my coping mechanisms, is that you have to find a way to honor your baby, honor your children. And if you have to not call it a loss and say, hey, you know, I lost the baby or I lost my child, if that makes more sense to you and that's what you want to say and how you want to address that, then that's fine. I actually recommend that, because if you honor your baby, you acknowledge that your baby is a person, and that also helps you with getting some closure. You know, that's one thing with pregnancy loss or a miscarriage that is missing, that sometimes there's no closure, especially if the parents weren't able to meet the baby and see the child, that they know that they heard their heartbeat and they felt grown inside of them. You just need that closure. It's like there's no way to get that, you know, we're all on camera, so if I was to do something to my husband, you know, we can get him justice. You guys see it, you know, but for an enemy, an invisible enemy like the enemy, to come in and take that from you, it feels like it's ripping out of your heart, out of your soul, and that's very devastating. But I want you to honor your babies, be it giving them a name, and that's what we have done. We've given all of our children names, and I thank God I have these holy visitations from my children. A lot, sometimes I share with him and sometimes I don't. I'm kind of like Mary, I hide those things in my heart. Like when I have those things, So I will recommend that you honor your children, give them a name or a nickname, and make them more real to you as best as you can. And also do something special on the due date, which would have been their birthday. Do something special as a family, plant a tree, release balloons, light lanterns, have a bonfire, do something to honor their lives. And that way it's not so much as a hard time for you. It's more something that allows you to break your silence and to share your story, and so your families can support you. Another thing is you have to learn how to get that grief out of your body and out of your mind. Everybody is not well, you can't really talk to everybody about what you're going through sometimes. Some of those things you want to keep to yourself, which is fine, but you also have to get that grief out. And so I would say keeping a journal is really important. I really appreciate Diona for sharing how she talked about writing, and her poetry is more so to help her, but it's a form of therapy from within herself, and she can release that from her soul. But she's getting those things out, your feelings, your thoughts, your questions, your anger, like just let it rip on that paper. Nobody has to go back and see it. Or even if God is calling you to do something through your pain, if he's speaking to you, write those things down and go back, and you can always go back and see the hand of God or see what's going on. Another thing that was real powerful for me was after I realized, okay, you know what? Nobody's calling me back, no support groups, no one's answering the phone. I have really no one to really help me with this thing. It's just you and I, God, what do I do? And he led me into creating a self-care routine. So I will really encourage you to do that. Do what's going to work for you, because the pain may not have been your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. So you're going to have to take this into your own hands, and you're going to have to do what works for you. And a couple of things that worked for me was affirmations. I wrote myself affirmations. I had to learn how to nurture myself, do things for me physically, for my body. I had to connect back with my body because I felt like my body felt me. And I had all these scars from these different incisions and surgeries and things. So I really had to affirm myself and nurture myself. So taking baths or aromatherapy, candles. One thing that helped me with the PTSD and kind of like settling down before nighttime will be word search. Went to the dollar store and got word searches, and that kind of helped me channel my brain. But then also I had like brain fog. So like I said, some things that kind of made sense, like what would make sense didn't make sense to me. It was kind of like you're asking me to do like a math equation. If you ask me, what are we eating for dinner today, or what you want for dinner, it was just like, I don't know. Like I went into like panic mode. It was just like so overwhelming. And so for me, I just found that the word searches were good. But then I also just did other things, like I bought myself flowers. I didn't wait for my husband to buy me flowers. I bought my own flowers, and just whatever I needed to do to make me happy. So, and every person's self-care routine is going to be different because you need something different than the next person. And also understanding that, don't compare your grief with someone else's, because it's going to be different. And that's totally okay. Give yourself time, give yourself grace, sit in your feelings, sit in your situation, and don't put a time limit on it. Just allow yourself to heal as you need, and don't apologize for that, because what you need is what you need. I will also say find a support group, like Keys of Hope. We also are virtually, but find some other women that you can connect with socially, and connect with who've gone down that path. Like I was telling my husband earlier, and I also say this to a lot of the women that we minister to, is that, we're part of a club that we did not sign up for, never would have signed up for it. But we're here now. So what do? We make the most of it by supporting one another, holding space for each other, sharing our stories, and just listening, and just loving on one another. Because I think that's the beauty in it, is that no, your story is not like mine, but it's something that's different, it's unique, but we're here together, and we want to hold space and support each other, because that's what's missing. And let's start breaking the silence and talking about what's going on. There's 1 in 4 women will experience miscarriages, and for me, it's like I didn't know that it happened to more women until I actually broke my silence and started talking about it. And then everybody popping up like popcorn, like, yeah, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And that's fine. But just finding that social support where you can release and talk about things, that's really important. Because I remember even sharing something with a friend who was pregnant at the time, just saying, you know, hey, it's kind of difficult for me to see, you know, pregnant women, or, you know, it's difficult for a woman to go back to the doctor's office after losing their baby and things like that. And so it's not that, you know, you don't want to see that person in particular that's pregnant, but a lot of things that no one will really understand. You know, you walking down the aisle at the grocery store and you're seeing a woman with her newborn baby, or you see her further along in her pregnancy and you look, it's a trigger. And so you having a support group with someone that you can kind of share some of those feelings and thoughts with is really important. And then just overall for couples as an advice, I would just say to just, you know, talk to your spouse. I know my husband probably can tell you that I probably used to ask him the same things over and over again, or talk to him about stuff, because like he said, he's like the fixer or the healer, but there was a lot of things he couldn't, like, you know, perhaps like really fix for me, but it just made sense for me to go to him and talk to him and share my feelings and my concerns with him, and cry to him, kick, scream, holler, whatever, just talking to him and just involving him in what was going on with me. If I felt like I had, you know, a mood disorder, or I felt like I needed time, or I couldn't do something I needed him to do for me. I needed him sometimes, a lot of times, I needed him to make decisions for me. Something real simple, I just couldn't do it. And that was, you know, that's just me. I just couldn't. I mean, I suffered 5, you know, losing 5 babies. And so that was really hard. And even though we had a daughter, you know, a lot of times that was hard on me as well, trying to look, how do I be a mother to this child who is here, who is a mighty warrior, after having that secondary infertility diagnosis? How do I mother her and I'm still broken and I'm still hurt? I don't know how to do that. You know, I didn't know how to do that, but I'm learning now how to do that. And I thank God for that revelation and helping me with that. But then also letting your spouse know also about dates. You know, the mother, you know, you will remember the dates. You will remember the days your babies was supposed to be born on, their birthdays, their due dates. You will remember the anniversaries. Like for us, one just major just passed October 27th, when the our first baby, Happy, would have been 6 years old on the 27th of October. And then 4 days later, November 1st, marks 3 years that we lost our 4th baby, but our 3rd baby that we lost. So that was a heavy week for us, you know. So, but we talked about it, and I shared my feelings and concerns with him, and he made sure he came to me, asked me how I felt, what did I need from him, how could he support me. But I couldn't, you know, just assume that, hey, you know, he should have known. He's not always going to know. You're going to feel those triggers and try to figure out, okay, why am I kind of antsy this week, or what's going on? I'm a little moody, I'm snapping on everybody or something, like what's going on, or you're feeling off. And then you remember, it's like, oh, okay. You know, your body will remind you before, you know, your mind does sometimes. And that's fine, but just talk to your spouse instead of letting it become a bigger argument or situation. Oh, he didn't remember, he should this, that. He's not always going to remember, and that's fine. So just keep the lines of communication open. So that's what my advice would be. What about you?
And to the men, I would say just take time to grieve. Acknowledge that you are grieving. Yeah. Acknowledge that you do grieve.
Right.
Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times we as men, we mask our feelings, or we set them aside, and we just try to be strong and pretend that we don't grieve. So that's important, you know, especially in loss. Take time to grieve, even if it's just in that moment, or if it's a day, or if it's ongoing. You know, go off to yourself and cry or grieve, or however you do, you got to get it out, and communicate that to your partner as well. So they know where you're at, you know, emotionally and mentally. So you can have that open line of communication. The next I would say is do something you love. You know, again, you got to take time for yourself as well, especially like I mentioned earlier. You know, in our times of loss, I put all my focus and my attention into my wife, but it was important that I took time for myself as well. So do something you love, whatever you like to do. You know, if you like to go fishing, go fishing, go golfing. You know, go for a walk in the park. Whatever it is you do, take that time to yourself. It's just another way, just to think and reflect on things and just to clear your mind. Be open and be honest about your feelings as well to your partner. Open up, talk, share, because it's important that you guys are on the same page, and you need to know, your partner needs to know how you're feeling. So that way, you guys can get through it together. You know, it doesn't make sense for you to walk around, you're feeling one way, and she don't understand why you're feeling that way, and vice versa. So be honest about your feelings and be open. And as Nisha mentioned earlier, listen to your partner when they're telling you about those due dates. Make sure you record them somewhere, put them in your calendar, whatever you got to do, because that's just a part of listening. I mean, that's a big thing. It was a big thing for Anisha and for us, that she entrusted in me that I would know, and you know that I remembered those dates. So I'm not very good at dates, even, you know, my mother's passing. You know, I know that day, but when it comes around, it's like those feelings I already got them out, and so I kind of put them aside. So it's a lot of times she come to me and remind me, so hey, how you feeling on this day and things like that. I'm like, what you talking about? She's like, oh, this is the day your mother passed. Like, well, I'm good, you know. So it's important that, you know, you record those things somewhere because it's important to her. And then affirmation, affirm your partner. They need to hear that you love them. They need to hear that you care for them. They need to hear that, you know, they're the apple of your eye. One thing that I did during our last loss, in terms of affirmations, was one day I was at work and I began to write just different affirmations to Anisha. All throughout the day while I was at work, I wrote them down and then I cut them out. So some things I wrote was like, Anisha, you are beautiful. Anisha, you mean the world to me. So it was about 10 or 12 different things. I typed them out, and I cut them out, put them on strips of paper, and I brought them home and I put them up around the house. And she had a meeting later that evening. So when she got home, I just kind of helped her get settled in. And then I took her around the house and just pointed her to those different quotes that I had put up. And as she was going around the house, I could just see how her countenance changed. Her spirit was lifted. And I knew in that moment that I had done the right thing and that I had done something to help her heal. So that was very key and very important right there. And then lastly, for couples, make sure you connect. Make sure you connect with your partner as much as possible. Sit down, talk, go on date nights, connect physically, connect emotionally, intimately, in all those ways, because it's very important. Because as Nietzsche also mentioned earlier, our marriage is impacted greatly. But those are awesome things that helped us get through and helped us get to where we are today.
Wow, thank you guys so much. That was amazing. Thank you so much for, first and foremost, for having the Keys of Hope Foundation, because like you said, is not a lot of support around for loss, and just knowing that you guys have, you know, the Keys of Hope Foundation where you guys are, I know that opened up so many so many hearts to people out there to know that they have a go-to, because it's nothing like you said that you don't have a go-to, and you don't know where to go. You don't know who's going to be there to support you when you have family, like you said, Anisha, that just say, oh, you know this, oh that, you know, and they just don't know how it feels because it's not them. So that, you know, thank you for having the Keys of Hope Foundation. I just want to thank you guys for, you know, coming on here, sharing your stories, sharing your coping, you know, skills to the panelists, not the panelists, the attendees. That way they have something to take away from this. I'm going to open up the floor now to the attendees. If you have any questions for Anisha and Stanley in regards to loss, you can drop your questions inside of the Q&A box. But yeah, this was beautiful. Thank you. It's well needed. Well needed. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well needed, and it's not talked about a lot, and you don't see a lot of conversations about it. So, this is a good piece, and I will say, a dear friend of mine actually, you know, when I told her about Wellness Week, you know, and I told her I had everything, and she was like, "You're missing one component." And when she mentioned it to me, I just thanked her, and my eyes was full of tears, because you know what, she was right. You know, from infertility to doula, what about loss? You know, so I'm grateful that she opened up to me and told me that, you know, this is the component piece that you're missing from Maternal Wellness Examine, which is about loss. So you see John Legend and his wife just a few days, not a few days ago, months ago.
Yeah, October 1st, she posted it. Yeah.
So that, she posted that was heart wrenching. So, and a lot of people poured out, their concerns and their support. But when it's like kind of like just us, it's like, who supports us, who reaches out to us when we go through it. So that's a beautiful thing. So if there are no questions for Anisha and Stanley, again, I just want to thank you so much for coming on to Queens United Wellness Week with the Loss Fireside Chat. It was amazing. It was awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.